Hello, everyone. My name is Paola, and welcome to Noveltindie. This is the channel, the place where I talk about indie novels, books by small presses, by marginalized authors. So, welcome to the very first interview. I am so pleased to introduce to you to Liana de la Rosa. Hello.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here with you today. And your first interview for this great new venture of yours. How exciting!
Yes, I'm so happy. Today, Liana, tell us about why we're here.
We are going to be discussing my upcoming novella, On a Midsummer Night.
Very exciting.
I was having a little fun with the whole mid part of it because this is the second novella in my Dalton series. The first one was The Captain's Midwinter Bride. And so this novella follows Beth Dalton. She is the daughter of the protagonist from The Captain's Midwinter Bride. And she has just, she hasn't just arrived, but she is in London for the social season because her younger cousin, Lucy, is making her debut. And so Beth has arrived to help her kind of navigate the season. And Beth has spent the last 3 years in Wales with her parents because her father has retired as a captain in Her Majesty's Navy. And he was gone for the majority of her childhood away at sea. And so this was their chance to actually get to know each other and become closer. But she's kind of getting bored. So she agreed to go to London. And she also has a secret profession in that she creates greeting cards, which were kind of they were getting very popular in Victorian society at the time. And so she secretly draws them and has like a printer and like a whole patroness. And she's created this tiny little fortune for herself creating these greeting cards. And while in London, she meets the man who her aunt and uncle want her younger cousin Lucy to marry. And he just so happens to be the young man who broke her heart 3 years prior. And so this is a second chance, older brother's best friend romance. And it's the first time I've written older brother's best friend. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
So exciting. So that is one of my favorite tropes. I don't read nearly enough of it, but it's one of my favorite tropes. So what are some of your favorite tropes?
Thought about this many times. I want to say that depending on who the author is that's writing it, all of the tropes could be my favorite. You know, it just really depends on who's doing it. So I am a sucker for enemies to lovers, especially if it's in the hands of an author who does really snappy, witty banter or like dialogue. I'm such a sucker for that. I'm a sucker for books where the hero falls first. I adore that. I guess I really like friends to lovers because I like it how they have like a history together. And then if you pair friends to lovers with one of them has been pining for the other for a while, I'm a goner.
I love those tropes as well. You write a lot of historical romance. So what is your research process like?
I usually go into writing a new book with a general knowledge of the setting, what was happening during that time, like major events or key players, like who's prime minister, what was, who's the president, like what was going on at that point. And I do one of two things, depending on what's inspired me. I either am inspired by something I already know or an event that I'm already aware of. And then I kind of go into writing the book with like this wealth of knowledge that I then have to kind of like winnow through to figure out what I'm going to include. Or I purposely don't get too much information. And then I start writing and I leave notes for myself in that first draft of stuff I need to research to find out, because I am a collector of details. I am a collector of information. So for On a Midsummer Night, I had a general idea. I knew that Henry was going to be a locomotive engineer. I had a general idea of like what that meant. But as far as like more details than that, I did not have. So when you saw my first draft, There's like notes all over the place. What would he be working on here? What would this be called? Writing like a exchange of dialogue. And I needed Henry, my hero, to like have a comeback to another character that revealed he knew what he was talking about, right? I probably read 4 or 5 different articles about early Victorian locomotives. And there I was like looking at like schematics, like trying to figure out for one line of dialogue.
That's amazing. And I love that it's just like for the one line of dialogue, because that's where it all comes down to, I feel like you read that very specific line as a reader and you're like, oh, the author is a trained engineer. Like they know everything. And do tropes affect the way that you go about the research process, or does it affect anything?
As far as the research process, no. And I think that's such an interesting question. I've been kind of like noodling over that. Like, does it affect it? Maybe it does, and I don't realize it. I want to say no. It's more, I guess, about how I use then that information in the actual book or novella.
Interesting. So if you were suddenly trapped in one of your novellas, what role would you play? And what would be your love story? You have a very adorable real life story.
I met my husband at beer night, a quarter beer night at a bar. So I've been thinking about what character would I want to be? And I honestly really like Beth, the heroine of On A Midsummer Night, for a few reasons. One, in that she's not a lady. She is not part of the aristocracy. She is not part of the gentry. She is like a middle-class heroine. I feel like she has kind of the best of both worlds, in so much that she gets to, she's comfortable enough. She's taken care of. She doesn't have to work, but also she has enough leeway in her life that she can pursue her interests and find a way to profit from them. And that's why Henry has to kind of prove himself to her, because she doesn't need him, but in many ways he needs her. She deserves a love story, to have a love interest who like recognizes that about her. I think that's a great love story.
Oh, I love that. I love that answer. Do you have anything else you want to plug before we go into the final question?
I'm very happy that my publisher, Entangled, has released my debut series, Once Upon a Scandal, in audiobook. There's 4 books, and now all 4 of them are out in audio. The narrator, her name is Gabrielle Baker. After On A Midsummer Night, which will be out June 2nd, I will be working on the 3rd novella in the series, which is Oliver, who is Beth's older brother. It's called Midnight is for Kisses, and that will be out, I don't know yet, because it's not written. But that's one of the great things about, writing indie books, is that you can kind of decide all that for yourself. And then I have my first book in my Latinx romance, historical romance series. I haven't announced the title yet, but it will be out next April. And if you subscribe to my newsletter, you will get first peek at the cover and the title and the blurb. And I've seen all of it. It's everything I wanted. It's gorgeous, and I can't wait.
I'm so happy that more readers are finding your books, because they're so good. Like, you're such a great writer. So this final one is all about paying it forward. So what are some other indie authors that you would recommend?
My 2 recommendations are going to be for historic romance, because that's what I write. The first one is Elise Marion. She writes Regencies and also medieval fantasies. She is just fantastic. And she always writes like diverse stories. She actually did a collaboration with like 3 other authors, like called Regency and Color. And it's all like one or more protagonists in each of the books is a person of color. The second author I recommend is Eve Pendle. She writes Victorian era historicals. She's smart. Her characters are smart, especially her heroines. I just really appreciate how she crafts her heroines, and she touches on subjects or topics that would be very easy to ignore during the time.
Nice. Very exciting authors. I'm definitely going to check them out. People at home, check the description below for all relevant links. If you haven't already, definitely subscribe for more indie book news, and we will see you in another one. Bye.